Right, welcome back everyone. In today's video we are going to be covering ferrets and why I keep them, what I prefer, husbandry, feeding, housing and stuff like that. So if you've watched my videos before, you know that I keep these guys for rabbiting, which is what they were originally and traditionally used for. These guys have been used by the Romans for rabbiting, so you're talking a couple of thousand years at least that these guys have been domesticated and in use. And their uses haven't changed, although they have now in recent times become very popular as pets, and they do make fantastic little pets. They're great little animals. As you can see, this one is nice and soft. So I'm really going to be going through just the few basics of keeping ferrets, and they really are a very, very easy animal to keep. So as you can see, this one's like a silvery polecat style ferret. All my ferrets are polecat colours. Really, colour doesn't make a difference. You can get black-eyed whites, you can get albinos, you can get silvers, you can get polecats, sandies. If you're working them, it doesn't make a difference. The lighter the colour ferret, the easier it is to see from a work point of view. So if you're doing big hedgerows or you're working your ferret alongside a hawk, then the lighter the ferret, the better. It's more easily seen by you, and a hawk can obviously tell the difference between a white ferret and a rabbit. But apart from that, colour really makes no difference. It's all down to personal preference. I've always kept polecat style ferrets. That's just my preference. That's just what I like and what I used to breed. So yeah, this guy, hob is the correct term for a male ferret. You've got hobs for males, gills for females. So this guy's a hob. All my other ones are hobs as well. I personally prefer to keep hobs. I did used to keep gills and breed. I don't any longer. For me, for my work that I do with them, I prefer hobs. I like quite strong hobs. We work some deep warrens, so I find the hobs for me work better than gills. But again, that's all personal preference. You know, gills are still great in their own right. But yeah, so these guys are really, really easy to keep. And the number one thing that I would say to anyone who's going to keep these either for working or for a pet is handle them. Handle them all the time. Handle them regularly. Because if you don't handle a ferret, they can really be nasty biters. And if the camera will pick it up, I'll show you. This is why, if it's picking it up. Yeah, I think it is. These guys have got some nasty teeth on them, something you don't want to mess with. But with regular handling, these guys can be, as you can see here, very very nice, very easy to handle. And I can even go as far with these ferrets, putting my finger near their mouth like that, manipulating them, and they won't bite me. So when you get a young ferret and you start handling them, they'll be quite wriggly, and you just want to, you know, hold them. The proper way to hold a ferret is under the armpits and to support the bottom end. You don't want to dangle them like that because it's uncomfortable. So always support the bottom end, and with your hand under his armpits, that's comfortable for them. And yeah, you want to make the ferret comfortable with being held, and that just takes time. When they're youngsters, they do tend to nip a bit, but what I found is if you have a young ferret and it nips, if you just give it a little flick on the nose, that'll just discourage that. Nothing hard, just a little flick on the nose just to shock them, and that usually discourages them. Yeah, so if you're working a ferret, you don't really need, there's not really any training to do. All these little guys are, you know, as they've been domesticated from the wild polecat, they've lost none of their desire or skill, or God, I can't even think of the word. I'm losing myself now. Their instinct. They've lost none of their instincts to hunt. So when you take these rabbiting, they'll do it naturally. So you don't really have to train them to do that. You just have to have a well-handled ferret, because when you're out and when you're ferreting, inevitably you're going to have to dig. They're going to kill a rabbit underground. You know, you dig down, you put your hand down that hole, and you're going to be feeling around for fur. You might grab hold of the ferret by accident. You might you know, grab hold of his tail, his back leg, and you pull it out, and the last thing you want is that ferret, you know, turning around and taking a nip out of you. Take it from me, it does hurt. Um, so yeah, this guy has been with me quite a few years. He's 10 now, almost 10. I've got him and his brother, and the rest of the ones are his sons. So yeah, they've got a good lifespan on them. You know, they can live into double digits as this one has, and he's still sprightly and lively enough. But you have to feed them the correct diet. You have to house them correctly. They're very playful animals. They like exercise. They like company. So, you know, it's worth noting, don't just get one if you're going to, you know, even keep them as a pet. You know, they do like company of other ferrets. They're very playful. So, yeah, these are fantastic little animals to keep. And as I said, given the right handling, they're very nice. You know, you can even, from a pet perspective, you can get like little harnesses and leads and take these guys on a walk. As you can see behind me, I've got quite a big hutch. It's about 6 foot long by 2 foot wide, 2 foot deep, which I actually have. It's a double tier. I have 6 in there, and I do allow these to run around my garden. If I can pan my camera around, you see I've got quite a big garden, and I let these guys have a run around in the garden with the dog, actually, just to give them a bit of exercise as well. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend keeping these guys indoors. They do smell. That's probably the only one of these things that I would agree with, that people say they smell. They do smell. During this time of year, the hobs, the males, and the entire male will smell. As time goes on and the males come out of their sort of summer rut, their season, the smell does lessen somewhat, but I would not keep these inside. You can have like their scent glands removed and castrated and stuff, and that'll, you know, stop that altogether. But if work-wise, if you want to keep them outside, not just for the smell, but when they're outside, they grow a thicker winter coat as well, which is what you want for when you're working them. You know, keeping them is easy in the hutch, you know, as long as they've got fresh bedding. I tend to use wood shavings. I buy like a big bale of wood shavings, and that's what I use for the run. And then in their bedding compartment, I'll either use in the winter straw or shredded paper, which shredded paper you can get, you know, in most offices and stuff if you go in and ask for absolutely nothing. And if you keep ferrets together, they tend to bundle up together and keep warm anyway. But yeah, so as long as they've got a good size hutch, enough to stretch out in and, you know, walk around, and, you know, this one's got a little ladder in, so they're up and down, so that keeps them fit enough as well. Plus, as I say, I let them, you know, run around my garden near off every day with the dog. But you can also get runs for these hutches. That's another good idea. The only thing I will say about ferrets is they are escape artists, so you don't want like a standard sort of rabbit hutch with a crappy thin wire, because these guys will just chew their way through it. They'll chew out and dig out of wooden hutches as well if you don't keep on top of them and, you know, check for rot and stuff like that. These guys will soon be out, and once these guys get out, it's very, very difficult to get them back. In actual fact, this hob did escape from his hutch a couple years ago, and he was gone for like 6 months until somebody actually spotted him in the woods. There was where I lived, we were opposite a big local wood, and a lady who was walking her dog spotted him, and I managed to recapture him in a live cage trap. But he was none worse for wear for being out. You know, he'd eaten quite a lot of the rabbit population over that 6 months, so he was big and fat when I got him, all but covered in ticks and fleas. So again, another part of your basic husbandry is, when you're taking these out, you know, they do pick up a lot of ticks and fleas. Just get some flea and tick treatment. Whether you can buy some small animal spot on, which you spot on their neck, or between their shoulder blades, or just simply the frontline spray. You know, same as you treat your dog. Treat your ferrets for fleas, mites, and ticks and stuff like that, just to keep them happy. And you know, if you want good, happy, clean ferrets, then, you know, that's what you got to do. Food wise, these guys purely carnivores. They eat nothing but meat. They don't need vegetables or anything in their diet. They can't digest them. They don't need it. So a raw diet is best for these guys. If not, then buy a quality ferret food. Don't do what some people do and feed cat food. You can get away with feeding cat food, but it's not high enough in protein for these guys. They, you know, so feeding them cat food again, they're not going to get what they need out of that. Ferret food is expensive. It's around 30 quid for a 10 kg sack now. Not the cheapest, but if you want your ferrets to thrive, then buy the proper stuff. During the winter months, I will feed them on a full raw diet. If you're going out rabbiting with these guys, what you catch, feed to them. You know, put a whole rabbit in their hutch, it won't last long. If I put a whole rabbit in this hutch with these ferrets, you know, within a day or two, it's gone. They're sort of like little piranhas. There'll be only a few bones left and a little bit of skin and whatever. They don't waste anything. And that's what mainly I'd feed them during the winter and the colder months, is a full raw diet, and that can consist from anything from rabbits to pheasants to pigeons to partridge. You know, anything you can get your hands on, you can hunt, or even I know people picking up roadkill if it's fresh and feeding it to these guys. They really are not fussy little carnivores. They'll hoover up anything. As well as some eggs as well. Give them some raw egg every now and then. Don't feed them things like milk. They're lactose intolerant. You know, that'll give them a real upset stomach. So just if you stick with meat, whole carcass and stuff like that, you can't go wrong with these. You know, they're quite hardy little animals. They don't really suffer a lot from diseases and stuff like that. There is a few diseases they'll get, but you know, kept well and fed on the right diet, you'll have healthy little ferrets. One thing to note though is that they can actually catch a human cold. So if you keep ferrets and you've got a cold, you know, don't breathe on them. They can catch a cold. But yeah, he's falling over here. But I've always thought these are wonderful little animals to keep. Obviously, from my perspective, I work my ferrets, but if you wanted to keep them as a pet, you know, they make great little pets. They're really playful. You know, they'll play with balls and stuff like that, and go through pipes, and they'll quite happily play with your dog. If your dog's, you know, broke to ferrets, as long as your dog won't, you know, rag them. I mean, these guys will give as good as they get. Even though my dog's broken to them and they sort of work together, especially this old boy, he's got real low tolerance, and if the dog gets in his face, he'll bite the dog. But yeah, they're just great little animals. Like I say, you don't really need to do a lot of training with them. To be honest, totally honest, I don't really even name them. It's not something, you know, they don't really come to their names or whatever. You know, when they work, because they're very used to me, and I've you know, handled them well. When they've come up from a rabbit warren, a lot of the time, if you just give them a little squeak, they'll run right up to you, and yeah, they'll come back. I've never had a ferret do a proper runner and never come back. But something you might want to do as well, while you're handling them and getting used to you and stuff like that, when we're ferreting and, you know, the time comes and you've got to put a locator collar on them. I've seen it time and time again where you go to put the collar on and a ferret will wriggle, and you need somebody to hold one end of them, and while you put the collar on, just make sure your ferret's nice and calm. You know, practice it. Just get the little leather collar and just practice putting that collar on the ferret, so when you come to do that in the field, they're, you know, nice and calm and biddable, and they're not going to bite you and whatnot. So yeah, but what I'll do is I'll show you the food that I feed them, and I'll show you some of the other ferrets in the hutch, and yeah, we'll I'll put this guy back with his friends, and I'll show you the hutch. So that's the hutch. So it's hard to tell on the video. It's about 6 foot long, double tier, and you got the sleeping compartment there, and yeah, there they are. They're all waking up now, but I'll put him back. Put him back in the sleeping compartment. I'm pretty sure the others are asleep. Yeah, there you go, they're all asleep. You won't disturb them too much, but as you can see, they'll pile up in a ball there, and then that's how they'll sleep. And I'll show you the food I feed them. Right, this is the food I usually feed my ferrets during the summer. As I said, in the winter I'll feed them whole prey such as rabbit and pigeon and stuff. So this is Alpha Ferret Biscuit, Ferret Feast. And you can see it's just a whole kibble, specifically designed for ferrets, so it will be high in protein. And I just use like an old metal dog bowl. Sometimes ferrets will have a bad habit of tipping the food out of the bowl and then toileting in the bowl, so I've always found a metal dog bowl is best because it makes cleaning nice and easy. And yeah, plastic just harbours bacteria, so just stick that in there for them. I've already given them a bowl of food today, but something that's worth noting is that ferrets have quite fast metabolism. So when you feed them, they need feeding very regularly. You know, it's no good feeding them sort of like every few days because they'll go quite fast. As you can see, sleeping ferrets, I can put my hand in there. None of them are bothered. Hello, mate, hello. All my ferrets are nicely well handled. This is one of the younger hobs here. But yeah. They tend to sleep a lot. They're quite lazy animals, to be fair. They'll sleep like 20 hours a day or whatever. They'll have a little run round for like 3 or 4. But yeah. So what you'll find sometimes is, and I'll try and film it at some point. If I just shut this hutch up and turn the camera around, and I'll tell you. Yeah, what you'll find is, and don't panic if this happens. You'll find, and this actually happened the other day, I should have filmed it, but what you'll find is you'll open the hutch one day and one of your ferrets will it will look like it's dead. It's not. What they do is, because they've got because they sleep a lot, what they do is they slow their body down, and they go into like a coma sleep, and you can pick them up and they're all floppy and you think they're dead, and then you give them a little poke and they'll wake up. So just don't worry about that. That's just a funny little ferret thing. But yeah, another thing to note is when you decide where to put your hutch, try and put it in the shaded area, the most shaded area of your garden. Ferrets really don't do well in the heat. If they're in direct sunlight or whatever, they don't control their temperature like a dog would by panting, so they can die of heat stroke quite quickly. So always put your hutch in a shady area of the garden where the sun's not blasting on them. But also think about winter time as well. You don't want an area of garden where the wind's going to whistle through their hutch and they're going to get cold. So yeah, you want to keep them comfortable in both sort of all seasons really. And if you pack this bedding area out with straw or shredded paper in the winter, you'll be in good shape really. And like I say, if you keep multiple ferrets, then they'll stay nice and warm. They'll keep each other warm, as you just saw in there. They're all sort of huddled up together. But yeah, just a standard water bottle. Get a couple. I've only got one at the minute. Actually, I need to get another one. But standard water bottle, that's good enough for them. I did have water bowls at one point, but what ferrets tend to do is, same with their food bowls, if you put a water bowl in there, if it's not fixed, I had mine fixed to the wall of my old hutch, but they tend to dump stuff in there, like they'll put shavings in there, or they'll toilet in it as well, which is a nuisance. So just get a water bowl. It's a lot cleaner and easier. Easy to clean out as well. Like try and show you. They'll like pick a specific corner of the hutch. They like this corner here, and even if you keep multiple ferrets, they'll all toilet in the same corner, so it makes cleaning out easy. Every other day or whatever, just go in and grab the crap out. And then what I do a big clean out once a week where I'll clean the whole hutch out, put fresh sawdust in there. But sort of every other day I'll just pick the poo corner out, just to keep the flies away and stuff like that. So dead easy to keep, great little animals. Yeah, there's not really much you need to know apart from keep them clean, fresh food, fresh water, you know, bit of exercise. If you can let them run around the garden or build a specific run for them so they don't, because as I said, they are a little escape artist. But yeah, just an all-round great little animal from a working and a pet perspective. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this little video. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll get back to you. Tell me what you keep, why you prefer to keep them, and yeah, give the video a thumbs up and a like, because that helps bump it up. And if you're new, subscribe. Till the next video, guys, I'll catch you soon. Cheers.